Sarah Cramer.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Thank you to all of you for your service and your willingness to serve again. I'm going to go fairly quickly here, and almost nothing I'm going to ask you was in my notes, except I'm going to start with one. Ms. Kramer, a.k.a. Jess, I'm looking forward to calling you Assistant Administrator. Could you walk me through the guidance, the new guidance regarding waters of the United States that you've offered, that the agencies provided in the context of Sackett, and why it complies with Sackett, and why the previous rule did not, speaking of ignoring court's decision, and just kind of walk us through that, why, and the prescriptive nature of the Sackett decision, perhaps, for us.
Absolutely. Thank you, Senator. And I really appreciated the opportunity to get to talk to you in a little bit more detail about WOTUS when we met. So the guidance document that was put out by the agency, I think is hopefully is pretty clear to folks. It is a straightforward guidance document that essentially says that in implementation, EPA and the Army Corps of Engineers, they're going to follow the law. And that gets exactly to your second question about what does Sackett say? What does it mean for implementation by both agencies to follow the law? To your point, Sackett was prescriptive. It was prescriptive in a number of ways, specifically focused around wetlands, which is what the guidance document focused on. Sackett held that the Rapanos plurality was correct, which means that the significant nexus test that had been previously applied and implemented by both agencies no longer stands. And it specifically focuses on the fact that only those wetlands that are adjacent to or abutting relatively permanent waters are jurisdictional moving forward. I do have to say, while Sackett was very prescriptive in certain aspects, there are some terms and phrases of ambiguity that are remaining from the courts. Thinking about things like the phrase continuous surface connection, relatively permanent waters, what does it mean to be connected to a relatively permanent water, and then the age-old question of, is this ditch in or out? Mm-hmm. So paired with that guidance document, the agency released a Federal Register notice kicking open a docket to take, not kicking open a docket, that sounds very aggressive, opening a docket to take public comments related to some of those ambiguous terms and phrases. And so any potential rulemaking that would be taken by the agency would hope to shore up those remaining areas of ambiguity so a landowner can confidently stand on their property and know whether or not they have a WOTUS or they don't have a WOTUS.
Thank you for that. That was very helpful. Would you mind coming to North Dakota real early? I know you've been there, but real early in the WOTUS sort of process. We have a lot of landowners that are very familiar with the problems of the ping-ponging and, frankly, the flaws in previous rules. So would you commit to coming to North Dakota? It's Absolutely. Not that far from Wisconsin.
That's very true. I'll just take a northwest swing. No, absolutely, Senator. It would be my pleasure.
Thank you. Okay, General Nesvik, first of all, I don't even know why you gave an opening statement, because after the three previous to you, you could only do worse. I mean, honestly, it can't all be true. Listening to Wyoming politicians talk about their states like reading a book, it's that I want to be part of. Having said that, I feel a little bit of Penny's pain, but you referenced, or maybe it was even Senator Lummis that referenced something that Ms. Kramer also referenced in the context of these jobs, and that is references to cooperative federalism. And I would be interested in, really all three of you, if we could have the time, to just give me a little primer on what you mean by cooperative federalism. And you, having been a state leader, certainly would have a good definition, I'm sure.
Absolutely. Thank you, Senator, and I sure appreciate our time in your office yesterday. I can't look at you and not think of something that I learned, though, from our new Secretary of Interior, and that is that both North Dakota and South Dakota have badlands, but North Dakotas are badlands. That's I appreciate that question, and certainly, what cooperative federalism means to me is that there are certainly roles that are very clearly defined for both the federal government and the state government. And broadly speaking, wildlife most wildlife species are the responsibility of the individual states to manage, with the exception of those who have been listed under the Endangered Species Act. And then there are a few other acts, Migratory Bird Treaty Act, Horse and Burro Act. There's some other species that certainly have a federal role, but at the end of the day, there is an opportunity on all of those, both state-managed species and federal-managed species, for the two entities to work together with their common stakeholders to find solutions. It's a more efficient way to run government. It's better when the states and the federal government are working together on these things, and as long as they stay within their own lane on those things that are sovereign to their particular entity, whatever that may be, whether it's the federal government or the state.
Absolutely. Thank you, Senator. I'd like to use an example in talking about what cooperative federalism means to me. In the Office of Water context, there are many statutes underneath both the Safe Drinking Water Act and the Clean Water Act. We've talked about waters of the United States, but I'm going to focus on the Underground Injection Control Well Program in the Safe Drinking Water Act. This is an example of a program that can be delegated from the federal implementation and oversight, from the federal implementation, to the state for them to actually implement the program. The great thing about that is that the states know their resources best. Part of this is the remaining oversight role that EPA has to ensure that the states are continuing to implement these programs consistent with the requirements of the federal law, but it also allows the states the ability to be more stringent in the restrictions that they put in place, which again, states know their resources best to the extent that there is a need for a little bit of additional protection in their, from their perspective. That is the ability to do it. And so it is that, it's that joint working together, recognizing expertise of the states while also maintaining the oversight role that is required under the federal law.
All right.